Imagine standing in the desert with 300 men, facing an army 3 times your size. You have no armor, few weapons, and the enemy wants to destroy everything you believe in. What would you do? Would you retreat? Would you surrender? On the 17th of Ramadan, in the 2nd year after the Hijrah, the Muslims faced exactly this situation. The Battle of Badr was not just a military encounter. It was a moment when faith met strategy, when the impossible became possible, and when the course of Islamic history changed forever. This is the story of how preparation, trust in Allah, and strategic thinking came together on the sands of Badr. The Muslims in Medina were in a fragile position. They had migrated from Mecca, leaving behind their homes, their property, and their livelihoods. The Quraysh of Mecca had persecuted them for years, and now they wanted to finish what they started. The Quraysh were sending a massive trade caravan from Syria back to Mecca, led by Abu Sufyan. This caravan carried wealth that would strengthen the enemy's position even further. The Prophet, peace be upon him, decided to intercept it. But Abu Sufyan was clever. He sent an urgent message to Mecca warning them of the threat. The Quraysh immediately assembled an army of over 1,000 warriors, equipped with the finest weapons, armor, and cavalry. The Muslims numbered only 313 men. They had 2 horses and 70 camels. Most of them had expected a caravan encounter, not a full battle. When the news reached them that the Quraysh army was marching toward them, they had to make a choice. The Prophet, peace be upon him, gathered his companions and consulted them. This itself was a profound lesson in leadership. He asked for their opinions, knowing that many had not expected a battle of this scale. The Majirun, those who had migrated from Mecca, stood and pledged their loyalty. But the Prophet asked again. He wanted to hear from the Ansar, the people of Medina, because their pledge of protection was specific to defending Medina itself, not fighting outside its borders. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh understood what the Prophet was asking. He stood and said words that have echoed through history. He said they believed in him, they trusted him, and they would follow him even if he led them into the sea. They would not be like the people who said to Musa, "Go you and your Lord and fight, while we sit here." Instead, they said, "Go you and your Lord and fight, and we will fight with you." This was not blind faith. This was informed commitment. The companions understood the risk, but they chose to trust in Allah's plan and their Prophet's leadership. When the decision to fight was made, strategy became crucial. The Muslim army reached Badr first and had the advantage of choosing their position. But they initially camped at a location that was not ideal. Al-Hubab ibn al-Munzir, a companion with military experience, approached the Prophet respectfully and asked whether this location was revealed by Allah or whether it was a matter of strategy and opinion. The Prophet said it was strategy. Al-Hubab then suggested they move closer to the water wells of Badr, control the water supply, and deny it to the enemy. The Prophet immediately accepted this advice. This shows something powerful about Islamic leadership. Revelation guides the principles, but human intelligence and expertise have their place in execution. The Prophet did not let his position prevent him from accepting good counsel. The Muslims moved to the strategic position, built a basin for their own water, and blocked the other wells. They also constructed a shelter for the Prophet to oversee the battle and protect the command center. The night before the battle, something remarkable happened. A light rain fell from the sky. For the Muslims, it settled the sand, cooled the air, and provided purity for ablution. For the Quraysh, it made the ground muddy and difficult to traverse. The Prophet spent the night in prayer, standing before Allah, asking for his help. He prayed, "O Allah, if this small band of Muslims is destroyed today, there will be none left to worship you on earth." His complete reliance on Allah, even while taking every strategic measure, embodied the Islamic principle, trust in Allah, but tie your camel. The companions also prepared themselves spiritually and practically. They sharpened what few weapons they had, organized their ranks, and strengthened their hearts with remembrance of Allah. When dawn broke, the two armies faced each other. The Quraysh were confident, arrogant even. They had the numbers, the equipment, and the experience. The Muslims had faith, discipline, and unity of purpose. The battle began with individual duels, as was the custom. 3 champions of the Quraysh stepped forward, calling for opponents. 3 Muslims responded: Hamza, Ali, and Ubaidah ibn al-Harith. May Allah be pleased with them all. The Muslims prevailed in these opening duels, a psychological blow to the Quraysh. Then the full battle commenced. The Prophet had instructed the Muslims to hold their ranks, to fight with discipline, and to only use their limited arrows at close range. This was strategic wisdom. Discipline won battles, not just courage. As the fighting intensified, the Prophet prayed fervently. Then Allah sent His help. Angels descended to fight alongside the believers. The Quran speaks of this divine assistance, but it came to those who had already committed themselves fully, who had already taken every strategic measure, who had already placed their trust in Allah. The tide of battle turned decisively. Despite their overwhelming advantage in numbers and equipment, the Quraysh began to fall. Their leaders were struck down, their ranks broke, panic spread through their army. The Muslims, fighting with coordinated strategy and unshakable faith, drove the enemy back. Many of the staunchest enemies of Islam fell that day, including Abu Jahl, one of the fiercest persecutors of the Muslims in Mecca. By the end of the day, 70 of the Quraysh were killed and 70 were captured. The Muslim casualties were 14 martyrs. May Allah be pleased with them all. These men gave their lives for the truth, and they attained the highest rank in the sight of Allah. The victory at Badr was not celebrated with arrogance. The Prophet reminded the companions that this victory was from Allah, not from their own strength. He taught them to be humble, to treat the prisoners with dignity, and to recognize that success comes only through divine support. The prisoners were treated according to principles of justice and mercy. Some were ransomed, some were freed in exchange for teaching Muslims to read and write, and some were freed without any compensation due to their poverty. This was war with ethics, combat with moral boundaries. The Battle of Badr sent a clear message to Arabia. The Muslims were not a weak group that could be crushed at will. They were a community protected by Allah, guided by principle, and capable of defending themselves with both faith and intelligence. The Battle of Badr teaches us that faith without preparation is incomplete, and preparation without faith is insufficient. The Muslims did not sit idle and expect Allah to do everything. They scouted, they planned, they consulted, they positioned themselves strategically, and they did not rely on their plans alone. They turned to Allah in prayer, in trust, and in complete submission. It teaches us the value of consultation. The Prophet, despite his direct connection to divine revelation, sought the opinions of his companions and accepted their sound advice. Leadership in Islam is not about ego, it is about achieving the best outcome for the community. It teaches us that numbers do not determine victory. 313 believers defeated over 1,000 warriors because they had something the enemy lacked: unity of purpose, moral clarity, and divine support. Badr became a symbol. It showed that truth, even when outnumbered and outmatched, can prevail when those who carry it are sincere, strategic, and steadfast. It proved that Allah's help comes to those who prepare themselves to receive it. The companions who fought at Badr, known as the Badriyun, held a special status in Islamic history. They were the ones who stood when standing seemed impossible. They were the ones who trusted when trust required everything they had. Today, the lessons of Badr remain alive.
When we face our own battles, whether they are external struggles or internal ones, we are reminded, prepare with excellence, consult with humility, trust in Allah completely, and never underestimate what faith and strategy can achieve together. The sands of Badr witnessed a miracle, not of magic, but of what happens when human effort meets divine will. That is the victory that lasts. That is the legacy that never dies.